All right, so are you ready to really dive deep this time? Because today we're looking at a character who might just change how you see the entire Twilight saga.
Ooh, okay. I'm intrigued.
You know her. You've sent us excerpts about her. It's Bree Tanner.
Oh, yeah. Interesting choice.
I'm excited to get into this because, let's be honest, everyone gets so swept up in Bella and Edward's, whirlwind romance.
Of course.
But there's something about Bree's story that just hits differently.
It really does.
Yeah.
And what I think is so interesting is that Bree's journey kind of exposes this undercurrent of privilege and inequality in the vampire world.
Yeah.
Something that maybe gets glossed over when we're so focused on the Cullens' picture-perfect existence.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a great point. Because when you really think about it, Bree's life before becoming a vampire was rough. Really rough.
Yeah, we're seeing.
The excerpts you sent paint this picture of her as a runaway escaping a terrible home life, basically fending for herself on the streets.
Right.
She had no control, no safety net. It's a far cry from Bella's world even before she met Edward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that difference in their starting points really shapes their transformation.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Bella chooses to become a vampire. It's this big, romantic, life-altering decision tied to her love for Edward.
Right.
But for Bree, it's sheer desperation.
Yeah.
She's preyed upon by Riley, who promises her safety and belonging within Victoria's newborn army.
Yeah.
It's tragic, really.
It is. And you almost feel tricked alongside Bree, right? Because on the surface, Riley's offer seems like a lifeline.
Right.
But then you realize it's just another form of manipulation.
Exactly.
She's trading one abusive situation for another, and she doesn't even realize it.
It's like that classic YA trope, the seemingly charming bad boy who turns out to be anything but.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the thing with Bree. It goes beyond just a typical love triangle or teenage drama.
Okay.
It forces us to confront a really unsettling question. How much free will do any of these characters really have?
Ooh, okay. I like where you're going with this. Because even Bella, with her choice to become a vampire, is she truly in control? Or is she influenced by Edward, by this romanticized idea of what it means to be a vampire?
Exactly. And that's where comparing their experiences gets really fascinating.
Yeah.
Bella's trust in Edward leads her to this powerful family acceptance, even immortality.
Right.
But Bree's trust in Riley, that leads her to a brutal army exploitation and ultimately a terrifying confrontation with the Cullens.
And let's be real, even though Carlisle tries to vouch for Bree in that final showdown, it doesn't change her fate. The Volturi see her as a threat, a loose end that needs to be eliminated.
Right.
It makes you wonder, was she ever going to make it out of that situation alive? Did she ever truly have a chance?
That's the brutal reality of Bree's story, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's a pawn in this larger game of power between the vampires.
Yeah.
And even the good vampires like Carlisle are limited in what they can do.
Right.
It raises this uncomfortable question. Are there some characters in this world who are just destined for tragedy?
It's dark, but it's thought-provoking. And that's what I love about diving deeper into these characters.
Yeah.
Because on the surface, Bree might just seem like a side note in the Twilight saga.
Sure.
But when you really examine her journey, it exposes some pretty profound truths about choice manipulation and the consequences of power.
Absolutely.
Even in a world of sparkly vampires and forbidden romance.
Right. And even within this world of manipulation and danger, Bree still manages to show remarkable resilience and complexity.
Yeah.
The excerpts highlight her intelligence, her observational skills, and the fact that she struggles with what she's becoming.
Oh, totally.
She's not just blindly following orders like some of the other newborns.
Yeah, there are these flashes of her humanity that shine through, particularly in her relationship with Diego, another newborn in Victoria's army.
Yeah.
Their friendship is like this little flicker of light amidst the darkness.
Yeah, I agree.
And it really elevates Bree beyond being just a stock villain character.
It's fascinating how their connection humanizes them, wouldn't you
I'd
say?
say.
They find solace in each other, share their fears and doubts, and even try to understand their new nature together.
Yeah.
It's a level of introspection that you don't see from many of the other newborns.
Totally. Remember that part in the excerpts where they seek out sunlight together?
Oh, yeah.
They're directly defying Riley's orders, and it just struck me as so powerful.
Right? It's subtle, but that detail reveals so much. It's like they're yearning for something more, something beyond the violence and the lies they're being fed.
It makes you wonder, what if they had found someone who actually cared about their well-being, who helped them navigate this new world instead of exploiting them?
Right.
Could things have turned out differently?
Now that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it takes us straight to the heart of Bree's tragedy.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, even though she displays these like glimmers of humanity,
Yeah.
these moments of critical thought, she's ultimately punished for it.
Right.
It's like the vampire world offers this twisted version of redemption where only certain characters
Yeah.
are allowed to evolve and integrate into society.
It's like a double standard, right? Bella, with the Cullens guidance, is celebrated for controlling her bloodlust.
Right.
It's seen as this romantic, almost poetic struggle. But Bree, who is essentially left to fend for herself, is deemed a threat for the same instincts.
Exactly.
It's almost as if her lack of privilege, her lack of choice from the very beginning seals her fate.
And it really makes you question the whole idea of good versus bad vampires, doesn't it?
Oh, totally.
The lines get blurry when you consider the systemic inequalities at play.
Yeah.
Like if Bree had been born into the Cullen family, would she be lauded for her self-control too?
Right.
Or would her struggles be dismissed as just another Cullen quirk?
It's like Bella's journey reinforces this idea that with the right support system, you can overcome anything, even your darkest impulses.
Yeah.
But Bree's story throws that whole notion into question.
Right.
It's a much harsher, more realistic take on what happens when you're denied those opportunities for growth and redemption.
And it makes Bella's story, which felt so groundbreaking at the time, almost naive in retrospect. Like, yes, it's great that Bella finds love and acceptance.
Right.
But what about all the Brees out there? What about the characters who don't get that fairy tale ending?
It definitely adds another layer to the Twilight Saga. Is like Meyer created this world with these fantastical elements, this epic romance.
Yeah.
But then she drops Bree's story into the mix, and suddenly we're forced to confront the darker implications of this universe.
It's like she's inviting us to think critically about the messages embedded in her own work, wouldn't you say?
Totally. And the fact that she chose to tell Bree's story from a first-person perspective in the novella The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner,
Right.
it almost feels like a deliberate attempt to deconstruct the romanticized version of vampire life that dominates the main saga.
Absolutely.
Didn't Meyer say somewhere that she saw Bree as this character haunted by circumstances beyond her control?
Yes.
Like she wasn't meant to be a straight-up villain, but rather a victim of the system that chews people up and spits them out?
Absolutely. Meyer's perspective is so crucial here because it challenges readers to move beyond those simplistic good versus evil labels.
Right.
It forces us to acknowledge the complexity of Bree's situation, to recognize that her actions are a direct result of the trauma and manipulation she's endured.
And I think that's why Bree resonates so deeply with readers.
Yeah.
It's not just about vampires and werewolves anymore. It's about recognizing the real-world parallels.
Exactly.
How often do we judge people without understanding the circumstances that led them to where they are?
It's like Bree's story holds up a mirror to our own societal biases.
Yeah.
We're quick to celebrate those who succeed within the system,
Right.
but we often demonize those who struggle without considering the systemic barriers they face.
Okay, now that's a deep dive if I've ever heard one. It makes you wonder what would have happened if Bree's story had been more intertwined with Bella's in the main saga.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Would it have forced readers to confront these uncomfortable truths earlier on?
Right. Would it have challenged the dominant narrative, the romanticized view of vampire life that Bella embodies?
And speaking of challenges, how do you think the Eclipse film adaptation handles Bree's character? Does it do her story justice?
Unfortunately, I don't think the film captures the nuance of Bree's character. While they show some of her vulnerability,
Yeah.
her internal struggles, her questioning nature,
Yeah.
her bond with Diego, those crucial elements are largely absent.
It's like they reduced her to just another nameless face in Victoria's army.
Right.
Stripping away the very things that made her story so compelling in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to a larger issue in adaptations, particularly when it comes to characters who challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
It's like there's this fear of disrupting the main storyline so that the complexities of these characters are often sacrificed for the sake of streamlining the plot.
Which is a shame because those nuances, those moments of defiance and introspection are what make Bree's story so powerful. It's a reminder that sometimes the most impactful stories are the ones that challenge us to look beyond the surface, to see the humanity in those who are often overlooked or dismissed.
Right. It's like that quote from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. The single story creates stereotypes. And the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story. Bree's story is a powerful antidote to the single story of the Twilight Saga.
That's such a perfect way to put it. Bree's story forces us to expand our understanding of this world, to acknowledge the perspectives that exist outside of Bella's bubble, and it makes you wonder, what other single stories are we accepting without question? What other untold narratives are waiting to be heard?
And maybe that's the ultimate legacy of Bree Tanner. She reminds us that there are always multiple perspectives, hidden stories waiting to be unearthed.
Yeah.
It's an invitation to dig deeper, to question our assumptions, and to recognize that even the seemingly insignificant characters can hold profound meaning.
So where do we go from here? What does this deep dive into Bree's world leave us with? What can we take away from her story?
Well, I think it's about more than just understanding Bree as a character.
Okay.
It's about recognizing the patterns of privilege and inequality that exist in our own world.
Right.
It's about asking ourselves, how do we contribute to these systems? How can we challenge them?
It's about moving beyond the easy answers, the black and white thinking, and embracing the complexities of the human experience.
And it's about recognizing that even in the midst of darkness, there can be glimmers of hope, moments of defiance, and individuals who, despite facing insurmountable odds, still manage to challenge the status quo. Bree Tanner might not have gotten her fairy tale ending, but her story continues to resonate, to spark conversations, and to inspire us to seek out those untold narratives that have the power to change the world.
You know, it's almost like Bree's story acts as a cautionary tale, not just within the Twilight universe, but for us as readers and viewers too.
Yeah, I can see that.
It makes you think twice about the single stories. We often accept those narratives that prioritize certain voices while silencing others.
That's a powerful insight. And it really speaks to the importance of seeking out diverse perspectives. It's like that saying, there are three sides to every story: yours, mine, and the truth.
Yeah, I like that.
Bree's story encourages us to look beyond the dominant narrative, to consider those alternative truths that often get overlooked.
It's about challenging our own biases, right? Like, are we giving everyone a fair chance to tell their story?
Exactly.
Or are we unconsciously prioritizing certain voices based on their perceived power or social standing?
Exactly. And when we start questioning those assumptions, it can completely shift our understanding of the world around us.
Yeah, for sure.
Suddenly, those characters who were once relegated to the margins, those stories that were deemed insignificant, become central to the conversation.
Thinking about Bree in this context, it almost makes you wonder how differently we might view the entire Twilight saga if it had been told from her perspective.
Right.
Would we still romanticize the Cullens lifestyle? Would we still see the Volturi as this all-powerful, untouchable force?
It's fascinating to consider, isn't it? Because by shifting the focus, by allowing those marginalized voices to take center stage, we inevitably expose the cracks in the facade, the injustices that were once hidden in plain sight.
It's like holding up a magnifying glass to those power dynamics, revealing the ways in which certain individuals and groups benefit from the existing system, while others are systematically silenced or exploited.
And that brings us back to the question we posed earlier. Does knowing Bree's story change how you view the Twilight saga as a whole?
It definitely adds a layer of complexity, that's for sure. It's like suddenly those seemingly straightforward themes of love, family, and good versus evil become so much more nuanced.
Right. It's like Bree's story peels back the layers, revealing the moral gray areas, the uncomfortable truths that were always lurking beneath the surface.
Right.
It forces us to confront the fact that even in a fantastical world of vampires and werewolves, those same power dynamics that shape our own society are still very much at play.
And it makes you wonder, could things have been different for Bree? Was there ever a path, even within the confines of this fictional universe, where she could have found true acceptance, a sense of belonging that wasn't rooted in manipulation and fear?
It's a question worth pondering. And I think it speaks to the power of empathy, the ability to imagine ourselves in another person's shoes and recognize the complexities of their situation.
It's about recognizing that everyone has a story, a reason for the choices they make, even if those choices seem incomprehensible or even morally reprehensible on the surface.
And that's what makes Bree's story such a valuable addition to the Twilight canon. It's a reminder that there are always multiple perspectives, untold stories waiting to be heard.
Right?
And that by seeking out those voices, by actively engaging with those alternative narratives, we can deepen our understanding of the world, both the fictional and the real.
It's about embracing that uncomfortable feeling of not knowing, of questioning everything we thought we knew, and being open to the possibility that our own understanding might be incomplete.
And maybe, just maybe, by allowing ourselves to be challenged to confront those uncomfortable truths, we can start to imagine a world where stories like Bree's are not just exceptions to the rule,
Yeah.
but rather an integral part of the narrative.
This deep dive has been incredibly thought-provoking. Thank you for joining us as we explored the complex and often overlooked story of Bree Tanner.
And remember, keep questioning, keep seeking out those diverse voices, and keep challenging those single stories that limit our understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
That's the perfect note to end on. Until next time, keep diving deep and never underestimate the power of a story.